Good morning, so it's Tuesday and we have a timetable again. We are starting with reading as always. Before we move on to some English that links well with yesterday's English, it's looking at pronouns. So I've got you the activity sheet if you'd like to have a look at an activity sheet. Some really simple questions there to work through. Copy them into your books if you'd like to copy the answers. Alternatively, there's another activity that I'm going to give you involving a tally chart and some of the texts, some of the books around your house that I think is a little bit more substance to it and a bit more learning. We're going to be multiplying 3 digits by a 1-digit number, and again I've looked at the method there for you. We're just going to increase the steps really towards finding the total there. It's very similar to yesterday. I've got a challenge for you in the afternoon as well, and a bit of creative time at the end of the day as well. However, you may choose to extend my challenge into that creative time as well. So on the screen I've put the sheet that I have included for you to look at to explore nouns a little bit further. Not so many questions about pronouns here though. It's hard to find a question about pronouns. So I've extended the task a little bit and I've given you a different route to take. What I'd like you to do is find a book and make a tally chart. Record down all the different pronouns that you find, the pronouns being words that replace nouns like he, she, they and we. And I'd like you to keep a tally from that book of all the pronouns that are used to try and find the most common pronouns that we use in the English language. Feel free to do just my tally chart activity, just the worksheet if that's what you feel will be best for you and your learning, or both activities. It's up to you. And there's nothing that needs to be printed here. You can print the sheet if you'd like, or you can write the answers in the book. And of course my tally chart will be drawn in your book as a record. Okay, so let's look at these 3-digit numbers times by a single digit. So we've got hundreds, tens and one digit multiplied by just a 1 digit. And here we have 325 multiplied by 9. So this is the grid method as we started with yesterday, and we're going to separate that first number into its initial values, so the hundreds, the tens and the ones. As I explained yesterday, in year 3 and 4 we're very aware of our place value, and we'll know that 325 has 3 hundreds, it has 2 tens and it has 5 ones. And we're going to multiply that by 9. Now the grid's given us those separate sections that we can work with. We know that we are going to make them 10 times bigger or 100 times bigger in this case, just so that we can find the value very easily. Now I know that 9 times 3 would be 27. If 9 times 3 is 27, then 9 times 300 would be 100 times bigger. Now yesterday we talked about don't get caught, add a naught. When we make things 10 times bigger, they move 1 place to the left. When we make things 100 times bigger, they move 2 places to the left. So we'll have to add 2 noughts to this value. So 27 becomes 2,700. 9 multiplied by 300 is 2,700. We've got those 2 noughts there that make it 100 times bigger. So we've effectively moved the digits out of the columns they were in and into columns that are of a greater value. Now our next one is 9 multiplied by 20. Now if I know that 9 times 2 is 18, I know that 9 multiplied by 20, which is 10 times greater, is 180. And finally, my last sum is 9 multiplied by 5. I don't need to make this any bigger, as it's not going to be 10 times bigger or 100 times bigger. It's just 5 ones. So it's just going to be this number fact that we all know. 9 times 5 is 45, and that's what I'm going to write in that box there. Now it's worth saying that when we are multiplying by values that are 10 times greater or 100 times greater, it's very easy to say just add a naught on the end. We've got to remember that we're not just putting a naught on the end, that these digits are actually moving, and they're showing us that they're getting 10 times bigger and 100 times bigger by moving 1 or 2 columns. So please, let's not just say that we add a naught on the end. It's an easy way to get past this, but it doesn't help us learn what these digits are doing. As with yesterday, our final step here is to add these three values together. Now it's a little bit trickier than yesterday due to how many values that we have got to add. So we might draw upon a method that we've used in the past, our columns, and add together each value by writing it in columns. We've got three values to add together. We'll start with our ones. We've got 0, 0 and 5, so we've got 5 ones. Then we've got to our tens. We've got 8 tens and 4 tens and nothing at the top. That would give us 12 tens or 120. We're moving on to our hundreds. We've got 700 and 100. That would give us 800, and we're coming down our rows each time like we did last week. And finally we've got 2000 and nothing else, so we've got our 2000 to add there. Draw a line underneath and let's total up. 5 ones, 2 tens, 9 hundreds, 2 thousands, and there's our total. 325 multiplied by 9 would give us 2,925. So as an alternative to the grid method, what we can use is a expanded column method, very similar to yesterday's method, other than we have an extra digit now. So we're going to work our way through, starting with those ones. We've got 5 multiplied by 9. 5 times 9 is 45. I'm going to write that in the first row. Then we're going to look at our next digit, which is a 2, so we know it's 20. 20 times 9, well, if we know 2 9s are 18, we know that 20 9s are 180. Adding that 0 to move the digits up to make sure that they are getting 10 times greater. And finally, we know that 3 times 9 would be 27, so we know that 300 times 9 would actually be 2,700, because it's 100 times greater. And then at the end, all we do is total up each column. So 5 ones, 4 and 8 would give us 12, so we carry that 1. 7 and 1 gives us 8, and 1 more gives us 9, and finally 2 thousands to have 2,925 for that first problem. Our second problem, working through again from our ones to our hundreds, we go for 2 multiplied by 3. It's 2 ones multiplied by 3, so all we need to do is find the answer. So 2 times 3 is 6. Moving on to the next digit, which is a 7. We know that 7 times 3 is 21. Therefore, we know that 70 times 3 as it is 210. It's 10 times greater. We know that 8 times 3 is 24. We know that 800 times 3 is 2,400. 100 times greater. And it's remembering to move those digits up to make them 10 times greater, and moving them up 2 places to make them 100 times greater. So that's tricky with this method. Finally, adding up our ones, adding up our tens, and adding up our hundreds to find a total of 2,616. Remember, children can choose which method they prefer, the grid method or the expanded column method, and using their knowledge of place value, making the totals 10 times or 100 times greater to work through these 3-digit problems. I've given you a list of problems. If you'd like to use them, that's no problem at all, or you can make your own up here. So here's my challenge then. So on Friday, May the 8th, we will be celebrating the 75th anniversary of VE Day. Now VE Day was celebrated in 1945 on May the 8th, when the peace was declared across Europe, where they had been fighting the horrific wars and battles that was the Second World War. VE Day saw lots of celebrating across the country, lots of street parties and jubilation. And for this Friday, I know across the country there's going to be lots of celebrations as well to commemorate this anniversary. As part of this, I'd like you to create a model or a display to celebrate with your neighbours. I've had a go at this, and you'll see that I have used an iconic image from the Second World War, the Spitfire plane. So I've created a model that is like a Spitfire plane. I haven't made it identical. Resources and my own talent, I'm afraid, have fallen a little bit short there. But myself, Rupert and Arthur have had a go at this. We built a frame out of cardboard that we had lying around from packaging. We cut that to the shape, we paper mache'd, we painted, and we decorated this plane with some icons that we printed, some tubes that we cut, and a pinwheel that we made, so when it's in our garden it will spin in the wind and our neighbours will be able to see that, and it will help us remember this special occasion, this celebration. Now your challenge is to create a model or a display with something iconic for this day. So that may well be using an iconic image like the Spitfire or some other iconic image from the Second World War. It may well be using the Union flag or the colours of the Union flag to display a message to your neighbours. Now this challenge I'm giving you a few days to do. You may well want to get your resources together and build on another day, or you may want to get started now. Just a word of warning, if you are going to paper mache, if the sun's out, you're very lucky, it will dry very quickly. If not, it does take a long time to dry. So think about what you have got in your house before you start this project. Good luck with this.